This week I'm going to be talking about this character called Kaladrax. And you can see that he's a Dragonborn character. Probably my first Dragonborn that I was tasked with. And I remember my friends joking about, this is the real test. If you can do like D&D character commissions, you gotta be able to be versatile. And this did end up being helpful when my boyfriend had to choose a reptilian character, a lizard folk in our current campaign. And so this was a nice little primer to get those kind of sharper, like monstrously humanoid features down. And I am really happy with how this one came out, honestly. He has a very intricate face, and I wanted to put in the detail to kind of show that he is already coming from a place of wealth. It could be interpreted that his expression is a little like cautious or judgmental. One of the only reference pictures that I had for this commission was the robe, and so I kind of really pushed the gold elements and just like the heavy weight of the fabric. And as you can see, as I start the shading part of this process, it is kind of a funny little bookmark for my own personal journey, in that this was probably around the time that I saw the Mark Burnett video. Mark Burnett is a industry artist who does like a YouTube art school now, and it's very helpful information. He's a pretty good teacher, and one of the main points that I took from that series was shading on a separate layer, focusing only on value, and that way you can have your colors or flats in a separate layer, or each on separate layers within a folder. And not only can you easily swap out color schemes and figure that out, you can then, what I do is I'll usually merge those layers while keeping the separate layers intact. I will merge everything into a separate layer and then further paint and render on top of that. That way I don't have to get knee deep in shading or rendering a certain colored thing by like color picking right off the bat. I'm taking my time and setting up a base that I can go back to if needed, but then I can not all is lost if I'm hours deep into rendering something and I'm like, oh, well, I don't want to just change the color with the hue saturation thing. I feel like it's a little more customizable in the way that I like to work on things. I really enjoyed this chapter of art where I used like a more pencil, like a small pencil type brush, and I feel like it really helps to get the details there. But it's also not like the G pen where I'm like super committing to it. Like there's still leeway in the shading to render the form. But I like the way that it looks. It's very clean. I tried to also push the wealth stuff in the details of the book, and just little, extra details everywhere. And so at this point I have started streaming, so apologies. You can see that I doodled a little, AFK signifier for when I leave for a little bit. But yeah, just continuing working on that shading. I don't know why, but sometimes like having a darker background just helps my eyes, I guess. But then I realize, okay, I have to at least check to make sure the values are pushed to the levels that I need them to be. So we need that higher contrast. So But that being said, most of this video is going to be that shading step of the process, um, just because it's, to me, it's more of like the marathon with the, you want to save your last like sprint for the very end, and uh, not really translating to like effort really, but just in terms of like how it feels while I'm drawing. So I know that I'm going to be spending like a lot of time on a certain step, but it's to provide that foundation so that I can just sprint through the color and you know, painting like one or two more layers on top, and then it's rendered. It feels pretty good. But I would say with all this talk of like shading, I really liked the line art that I went for in this. You know, this was kind of a time where I still kind of rely on like a more realistic style, but I'm trying to play with that, give it some more elasticity, and you know, break the rules in all the right ways, kind of thing. Um, but I feel like this small pencil type brush for line art in a style like this, um, it just looks good on its own. Like, I don't know, I am a line art appreciator. Uh, like sometimes I'll have line art that it just looks good on its own, and I don't want to like even risk like quote unquote ruining it with shading and color and stuff. But I think especially for a process like this, if it's supposed to be like shading a 3D model, the lines, it makes sense that the lines themselves are also very thin and maybe not the focal point, I guess. Like they very easily fade into the background and melt into the rendering. Like there's even a moment in this time lapse where I kind of turn off the line art every once in a while, and I feel like that's a good test to kind of see how your shading is going, because if you can remove the lines and still see the forms, and like there's not much change, like I think that means you're doing a good job. But it's pretty evident that I saved the gauntlets for last. They, again, with pushing the wealth aspect of this character, I wanted to make them like solid gold, and that ended up kind of being a struggle. Getting that texture right where it's not just like garishly polished, but still not like a hunk of junk either. So that's probably the one thing that might date this piece a little for me, just because I like to think that I've gotten better at doing the metallic sort of things. Um, I see I'm using a really small brush for like the the reflections when I should have gone a lot bolder and bigger strokes. But now as I'm adding the color, wow, you can see how quickly it comes together. Like I didn't really have to do a lot of rendering at this point, so the finishing touches are really just coming through. Now, as we watch these last few details take shape, I just want to say this has been Kaladrax, and I appreciate everyone's support and attention and sitting through to watch this video. Um, I know I'm no educator, so sorry if I have been rambling about nothing, but that's kind of what it's about for me. We're just figuring things out as we go. And definitely want to encourage any other artists or creatives who are, also on that path. Check out our Discord. My friends have a podcast that's all about D&D world building and, doing things with what you have. So, there's always space for community and art. And yeah, check everything out in the description. It's been wonderful. Thank you again.